Good evening. Welcome back to SL Tonight. Tonight we're headed out to the Old West with a charming tale from the pages of Cowboy love. Meet Melody Ames, the Prairie Troubadour, a singing cowgirl with a big heart and a knack for finding trouble and love. This is her story. Lady in Distress. It was sundown when Melody Ames and his companion Pedro left their mounts at the stable in Owl Hoot. Yeah, I don't know why it says his. Pedro glared suspiciously at the whiskered stableman who started away with his beloved mule. Senor, if one silver bell is missing from Rosita's bridle, or one red tassel from her saddle pad, then I, Pedro Gonzalez Juan Garcia Morales, why, Rafaelo Jose Monero, will personally extract your heart with a very dull knife. Yeah. I hope God that never comes up again. The stableman gulped. Yes, sir. I mean, no, sir. You can trust me with your mule. That we will see, Pedro growled as they started up the street. Melody chuckled. What's the idea of scaring the poor hombre half to death? Him I do not trust. He is the shifty-eyed. Nor do I like this town. Who is this Mike Maddox that has his name should be on the stable, the bank, the freight office? A town should belong to many people, not just one. Right, Melody said. But we're just hard-working cowhands on our way through. We'll be gone by sunup. Let this Maddox gent own the town if he wants to. All we want is some grub and a place to sleep. They turned in under a sign, Maddox Western Star Saloon and Meals. A wave of loud talk broke off as they entered, and Melody felt the impact of suspicious stares from hard-faced gunmen who lined the bar or crowded the gambling tables. Ignoring the crowd, they ordered supper and found seats at an empty table at the back of the saloon. Here a few other men were eating, plainer men without the sagging gun belts and the boisterous talk. Pedro nudged Melody. As I thought, amigo, it's a town of fear. Quiet ones are afraid. The ones with the guns and the loud talk are the bosses of the town. Right, Melody said again. And there's the king boss himself. A big, beefy, well-dressed man had come from an office at the rear. He spoke to the men at the bar, glanced toward Melody and Pedro, and then walked over to their table. His lips held a smile, but his eyes were cold and suspicious. Howdy, gents. I'm Mike Maddox. You're strangers around here. Melody performed introductions. We're just passing through, headed north for jobs on the summer ranges. The big man nodded. Anybody who minds his own business is welcome in Owl Hoot. Be smart, stay healthy, is our motto. He turned away and tramped back to his office, leaving the veiled warning hanging like a threat in the smoky air. Melody and Pedro finished their meal in silence and went to the bar to pay. Is there a place we can bed down for the night? Owl Hoot Hotel up the street, fat bartender said. He winked at the men along the bar. $1 apiece and pay right here. This is the hotel office. Here's your key, room 9. Go right up. Melody paid and accepted a rusty key. As they went out, he heard a shout of raucous laughter just up behind them, and his lean face tightened. The joker pulled something on us, he drawled. I don't know what, but I expect the worst. To their surprise, the Owl Hoot Hotel turned out to be nice and neat and pleasant. There was a desk and a mail rack in the tiny lobby, but no one was in sight. He went across and up a stairway to the second floor. Melody was trying to fit his key into the door of room 9 when a cold, angry voice at their back said, Is this what you two grannies think you're pulling? They whirled. A girl was standing in the dark hall. She was tall and slim and lovely, with a wealth of black hair and dark eyes that flashed with anger in the pale oval of her face. Pedro drew in a deep breath of surprise. Melody gulped. Why, ma'am, we just gave the bartender down the street the money for this room, and I'm trying to make the key work. The girl seemed to wilt. The anger went out of her eyes to be replaced by a dull hopelessness. Her slim shoulders sagged and her lower lip trembled. All right, she said dully. We've both been taken in, and I haven't the heart to stick you with it. Go ahead and use the room, but that key will never fit. I'll give you the right key downstairs. Wait, Melody said. You mean we're not supposed to be here? It's one of Mike Maddox's jokes. the girl said. His hotel is the only place in town he doesn't own, so he's trying to wreck me by collecting room rent and sending men up here to sleep. Willie, the bartender, has a whole box of old keys he sells for $1 a piece to strangers. I've been trying to fight him alone since my dad died, but I can't hold out much longer. I'll have to give him the hotel and get out. Melody stared at the girl, so proud and so beautiful, yet so hopelessly alone in her fight. Something took hold of his heart and twisted it. Impulsively he said, Now, ma'am, there'll be none of that. If we were cheated, we'll settle it with that fat rat in the saloon. Here's our room rent and cash. There's no reason you should pay for our gullibility. The girl stared at the money in Melody's hand, and then she broke. Tears flooded her lovely eyes, and her shoulders trembled with sobs. I'm sorry, she whispered. You're the first who ever did that. The others all side with Maddox. The hotel is full, and I can't collect a penny from any of them. She broke off as a big bearded man came trampling heavily up the stairs. Melody recognized him as the one who had been at the bar. The big man started to shove roughly past. You got to stop cluttering the halls this way, he snarled, or I'll tell Mike Maddox you ain't running a first-class house. Without warning, Melody Ames shot out a hand. He caught the big man by the shirt front, hauled him around, and slammed him up against the wall with a force that shook the building. Have you paid your rent, brother? If you haven't, fork over to the little lady right now. The big man took one look at Melody's cold eyes and stopped squirming. With a curse, he pulled out a pocketbook and extracted a bill. Mike told you how to act, mister. Wait until he hears how you're cutting into his business. He'll take care of you. Fine, Melody said flatly, and tell him we'll be coming down to collect the rest of the rent in a little while. As the big man reeled away, cursing, Melody handed the bill to the staring girl. I'm a peace-loving man, ma'am, but when I see a rank injustice, I sort of lose my good judgment. Oh, you mustn't, the girl sobbed softly. I do thank you from the bottom of my heart, but you'll be killed if you try to help me. I'm Jeannie Tobin. My father bucked Mike Maddox until he was ambushed and killed. I can't let an innocent man face the same fate. Senorita, Pedro said sadly, this is Melody Ames. He sings the sweetest songs and slings the fastest gun in all the West. If he determines to help you, then neither you nor I can talk him out of it. Jeannie Tobin turned. Before Melody could move, the two soft arms went round his neck and warm kisses pressed themselves against his. Fire coursed through his veins at the touch. Suddenly he knew that, to bring the light of his laughter back into these dark eyes, he would gladly face Mike Maddox and 100 gunmen. For a moment, Melody Ames let his arms tighten around the slim, vibrant figure of Jeannie Tobin, let his heart and his lips respond to her young eagerness. Then, reluctantly, he released her and stepped back. Stop worrying, little Jenny, he said softly. I've never known a bully like Mike Maddox who didn't have a core of yellow. Once that's shown up, his gun toughs will desert him in a minute. Pedro and I have had experience in cracking hard shells. Senor Melody is right, Pedro said sadly, though it's an experience I could do without. We gave a proverb in Mexico, has been way agarte, which means do a good deed and then watch out. From Senor Melody, I have learned how true that is. Jenny started to speak, but the words never came. Downstairs, the lobby door crashed open and booted feet tramped in. The voice of Mike Maddox came harshly up the stairway. You had your chance to stay out of trouble, Granny. Now come down and face it. Coming, Maddox, Melody called. He twitched his sagging gun belt to settle it and glanced around to see that Pedro was ready. An expression of surprise crossed his lean, taut face. Pedro, his friend and companion, was nowhere in sight. He had slipped noiselessly away at the first warning tramp of boots. Don't go, Jenny cried in soft anguish and caught at Melody's arm. Stay here, Melody said gently, and try not to worry. He pressed her aside, letting his hands rest for a moment against her wet cheek. Then he kissed her gently on the forehead, turned, and started down the narrow box stairway. He saw the boots first, four sets of them planted wide apart, then his line of vision raised past loaded holsters and poised hands, and up at last until he was face to face with Mike Maddox and his 3 killers. They were fanned out so that he could not watch all four at once, and their cold intent was clear on their faces. They had come to kill and kill swiftly, and that in itself was proof that Maddox's empire of blood was too shaky to risk opposition. "I thought you were yellow," Melody said softly. "The first moment I looked at you. This proves it. You haven't the nerve to face a gun by yourself." "Talk is cheap," Maddox said flatly. "Results are what I pay for, and only slugs settle the thing permanently. Make your play, stranger. We're going to kill you." "That," said a soft voice from the open side window, "is one bet you would lose, Senor Maddox. For the first gun fired will be mine, amigo, and it's aimed straight at your black heart." With a gasp of shocked rage, Maddox and his gunman swung round. Pedro was seated carelessly in the open side window of the lobby. His drawn gun rested as one knee covering the murderous quartet. He had run down the back stairs at the first warning to cover the lobby from the shadows. "You'll pay for this," Maddox choked, purple with fury. "If you think two smart saddle tramps can push Mike Maddox around, you're crazy. Gun him out, Pete. You're the fastest." Indian Pete made a snarling noise in his throat. "Go ride a rope. If you think I'm in the market for a funeral, you're crazy." "I salute your good judgment, Senor Pete," Pedro said. "Now, if you will please drop your guns to the floor and kick them over to me, it will avoid unnecessary accident. I believe Senor Melody has a matter to discuss with Senor Maddox, man to man." As the cursing, raging gunman obeyed, Melody unbuckled his own gun belt and hung it on the banister. He grinned. "Pedro, you're a mind reader." A gesture of Pedro's gun sent the three hired thugs back to the wall, leaving Mike Maddox alone to face Melody Ames. The murderous boss of an owl who measured his opponent's lean, hard-muscled frame, and something close to fear flickered in his eyes. Then, without warning, he charged in a vicious rush, hoping to smash Melody back against the hotel desk. Melody whirled aside from the brutal impact, and his fist sledged out. There were two jarring thuds, and Maddox stumbled sideways. He went to his knees and bounded up, roaring, mighty fist driving furiously. He was fighting with the desperation of a man who sees his whole empire crumbling, using boots and elbows with vicious intent to kill or maim. Melody was staggered by the sheer violence of the attack that beat down his guard and rocked his senses with sledgehammer blows. Melody dodged a vicious swing and slugged at Maddox's jaw. The big man reeled and Melody struck again. Maddox cast one frantic, frightened glance around and then lunged desperately for Melody's gun belt, still hanging from the banister. He got his hands on it and was jerking the gun free when Melody's smashing dive caught Maddox around the middle. Maddox crashed through the railing and onto his back on the stairs, and Melody, following, drove rights and lefts into the battered face with all the strength at his command. He saw Maddox's eyes roll up and close, and the big man went limp, rolling down the steps to a battered heap on the floor. Melody straightened, panting, and saw that the fight was over. He turned, shaking his head to clear it, and for the first time he saw that the tiny lobby was jammed with men. For a moment he thought they were Maddox's gunmen, and then his eyes cleared. These were no hired killers, but the men of Owl Hoot and the surrounding ranges, cattlemen, storekeepers, young and old. Brigadier Drancher stepped forward. "Son, you done a thing that needed doing for more than a year. So have we Maddox gunmen are locked up under guard to await trial as soon as we can assemble a court. They had us buffaloed until you showed us what a man with courage can do. Take charge of Maddox now. He'll not be the boss of Al Hood any longer. Thanks to you and your Mexican friend, we got our town back." Suddenly a figure burst through the crowd and soft arms were around Melody's neck again. "I saw it all," Jenny Tobin whispered. "I was so frightened until Pedro spoke from the window and made them lay down their guns. Then I saw fear in Mike Maddox's eyes when he faced you, and I knew none of us would ever have to live in the shadows again." "You were afraid, Senorita?" Pedro said, coming forward. "If you hear one little tinkling sound, it is the chunks of ice in my veins beginning to thaw out." Melody looked deep in Jenny's misted eyes and read there the message of promise and sweet anticipation. "Stay here," her eyes pleaded. "Here is the end of the rainbow for the wanderer. Home and love, respect and security. This is your town now, Melody Ames." Maddox ruled it with fear and brutality. "You can guide it with dignity and honor. The town is yours, and so am I. Amigo, Pedro said softly. There is a matter that disturbs my soul. The rascally stable keeper was one of Maddox's tools. He replaced your horses, Prairie, and my beautiful mule Rosita in his keeping last night. You're right, Melody said. You better check on him right now. Come on. Will you come back, Melody Ames? Jenny asked. Will you be back here, or will you ride away? It came to Melody suddenly that both Pedro and Jenny were waiting for his answer. His lean face tightened. I don't know yet, little Jenny, he said quietly. It's a thing I'll decide as I walk. One of the townmen was guarding the stable when they got there. Rosita brayed a noisy welcome to Pedro, and Prairie whispered softly, nosing Melody's shoulder. Outside the window, the dawn was breaking over the distant mountains, touching the thin line of the far trail with mystery and promise. Somewhere a rooster crowed and a lark rose, singing. Without speaking, Melody reached for Prairie's saddle. In silence, the two mounted and rode out onto a still dark street. Down the block, a rectangle of light showed the open door of the Owl Hoot Hotel and silhouetted the figure of Jenny Tobin waiting on the porch. Melody sat for a moment, looking up the straight road to love, and then he twitched the reins and turned Prairie's head to the north. In silence, Pedro rode behind. And Melody's sweet voice rose in song, the song of the open trails and the far reaches of the frontier, of man's loneliness and hope. At the edge of town, he looked back once. The hotel door was closed. Jenny Tobin had heard the song, and she no longer waited on the porch. The end. And that is how Melody Ames, the Prairie Troubadour, turned a lady in distress into a happy ending under the western stars. Classic Golden Age romance with a cowboy twist. If you enjoyed this, let me know. We got more western and romance tales lined up. Full comic available on the website. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next sit-down story. Good night, partners.